Kongversation.
I'm riding on the back of Richard Dreyfussy, my new shark animal buddy. Next up, E3 2017 coverage.
Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
I'm Cameron Reigle.
I'm Mitchell Wolfe.
I was going to introduce you, Mitchell, because you're usually not here, but go ahead and make yourself at home. Put your feet up on the coffee table.
I'm Mitchell Wolfe.
It's good to have you, Mitchell. Seriously. The last time I saw this guy, last time both of us saw this guy, we were shoveling refried beans into our mouths.
It was a step up from the other Mexican food place we did, I guess that would have been 2 years ago now. But every 2 years, we got to do this, Hyle. We got to get together in LA. Cameron, you're coming too, and we can just get progressively, incrementally better Mexican food.
Well, ultimately, wouldn't we just have to go down to Mexico to get better? I don't really know how much better you can get. Now, granted, I would hope the wait staff would be a little kinder to me, but in general, I think, there's only so much quality you can hit without actually going south of the border.
I don't know. Cameron, what do you think? I feel like he deserved the cold shoulder he got from the waitstaff.
Yeah, I think your canine-themed cheese humor just isn't playing to the right audience, Hyle.
They set me up for it, all right? I'm only human, and yet they treat me like the dog they milk. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I don't know, Mitchell. I did like the place we went 2 years ago because they had those flaming... were they flaming margaritas or tequila shots? I don't know what they were, but they were flaming for sure. And that's not a euphemism for their ambiguous sexuality. They were actually on fire, and I quite enjoyed that because I am a burgeoning pyromaniac.
I was not 21 at the time, so I couldn't possibly comment.
I like how we were corrupting a minor then. Fantastic. Put that on my record. No, this is the E3 2017 wrap-up episode of The Kongversation. And Cameron's here. He's my partner in crime during E3. And Mitchell, who never got into E3, but he hung around the peripheral of it, I guess, and like some shady drifter. And I guess that qualifies you for being on this episode.
Alleged partner in crime. You can't prove anything.
Oh, true, yeah. I didn't put those shoes up on our power line, that's for sure. What? Yeah.
So, just to start out, just to preface the show, I'm pretty optimistic about what happened at E3, and I feel some pessimism from you in general about the whole show.
What? No, I think we're generally optimistic about E3. I think any pessimism is just world weariness from actually surviving
Okay,
it.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so, we were out in Los Angeles for the better part of the week, and that entails driving to Los Angeles. So that's strike one. The rental car situation was much better this year. We actually went through a reputable vendor and had no issues whatsoever. So thank you to the good people at Enterprise. And thank you for not saddling us with this shady outfit with a guy who asked us if we beat our wives and then extolled the virtues of spousal abuse. So...
oh, really?
Yeah, that was last year.
I didn't hear about this.
Oh, no, I'm pretty sure we alluded to it on the conversation. But yeah, Chad and I, there's a problem with, I think, whoever we tried to go through. It was a national chain, but maybe Avis. But they wouldn't rent us a car because there was an issue with my card. And because the bank was giving us, starting to distribute the cards with chips in them. And the bank lost mine and gave me a temporary card, but because it didn't have my name on it, they wouldn't rent me a car. So we had to go through this shady guy who he was from some country, one of those countries overseas. I don't really know which one. He was kind of doing this weird Andy Kaufman-esque vague foreign man voice, but he Yeah, he was asking us if we were married, and then just went on this rant about how you need to smack the women folk around to keep them in line. So that was fun, and it was a great way to kick off E3 last year. But we did not go through any of that this year. We actually just got a car and left the lot. So little weird, but then we got to the party house. Come to find out, the party house is probably where you can score some primo drugs, because as we were leaving on Thursday to go to the convention center, we saw the telltale sign of shoes hanging from the power lines right outside. So I'm a little bit sad we didn't get in on that action, Cameron. We could have scored some side supplemental income, but alas, we had to just rely on the Patreon. Anyway, and then, E3 was such a pressure cooker this year with the 15,000 extra people that I think it took until day 3 for us to really find our groove at E3. Day 2 was better marginally. Day 3, I didn't really mind the crowds as much, and I was able to handle it a little bit better. I don't know what you feel about that, Cameron.
Yeah, I definitely felt like days 2 and 3 were much easier to navigate the space. And part of that was just finding our bearings and kind of getting acclimated to how certain areas of the show floors were going to be. But I also think it was a big factor that day 2 and 3, everyone else in the show floor seemed to kind of adjust to the situation a little bit more.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Well, not just the people, not just the attendees, but actual companies, the developers and publishers and what have you, who actually had booths set up. They all kind of accommodated for the extra crowds. Day 2 they did, but I think day 3 everybody was running a more finely tuned operation than definitely day 1, at least, and that made for a more pleasant experience. It'll be interesting to see going forward. A lot of people are saying, oh, E3 is ruined now, and I don't think it's ruined. I think it's just going to be an adjustment, and unfortunately, this year was the growing pains. This year was going to be sacrificed a little bit at the altar of this new way of doing E3, but ultimately, I think it'll be fine. They just need to figure shit out.
I mean, I hope they keep doing it this way because, I'd like my options open to come back. But
right. Yeah.
I think I agree. I think this was there was always going to be some kind of hiccup this year when you add 15,000 more people into the mix. I don't think it matters how well prepared you are. And there were areas where they were more prepared than others. And as you said, things came together a lot more by the last day, but there was always going to be some lessons learned here, and I do think that even if they keep going with this structure, things will probably be better going forward.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
thing with E3 is that it's really just not a particularly good gaming expo, if that's what you're going for.
No.
If you're just going there to play some games and talk to developers and be a fun video gaming guy, which it was me for the last 2 years, it's not great. There are better things. PAX is better. Even conventions that are more focused on press, like Tokyo Game Show or Gamescom, those things seem to have worked out what it is to invite the public into their show anyway. And E3 still just hasn't done it. It's still very much a place for press, but now it's a place for press that anyone can go to. And I was a little upset about not being able to get on the show floor this year until I saw the pictures, in which case, I realized, no, I'm probably good this time.
Yeah, I think I do kind of see what you're getting at, because this was my first time on the show floor, but I've been to other, not PAX, but other sort of convention environments, as I often talk about MagFest. E3 is definitely not a convention environment. It is, as you said, I think this sort of a targeted press event that was just opened up to the public a bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, the reason so many of the public were eager to attend was the mystique of E3. I mean, for over 20 years now, it's kind of been what the video game calendar revolves around. I mean, it's pretty much a year in video game fandom is before E3 and then after E3. And I think so many people, I mean, I was one of them once upon a time who just dreamed of going to E3. And, I got in before, they fundamentally changed it this year. But I think that E3 is going to be evolving over the next few years. The more this becomes routine. And on day 3, we finally saw our first E3 cosplay of just people attending dressed like the Joker and Harley Quinn, because that has a lot to do with video games. And so I'm kind of weary about that direction, about it going into a more Comic-Con-y style route where people are starting to, dress up. And I mean, it's their funeral because it's hot as balls in E3. So go, have fun wearing.
Oh, that doesn't stop outfit. People at Otakon, which formerly Baltimore, now DC this year in midsummer. That's real fun. But yeah, it definitely seemed like there wasn't that much of it. I think there's kind of some understanding that E3 isn't quite that environment just yet. And I do want to say, for all of the sort of like belly aching we've done on the show about E3 this year, I still had an absolute blast. It was a magical time. I want to make that abundantly clear.
So did I. And like I said, I think it got better each day. So I won't hold day 1 against anybody because that's just the way it was. And obviously I think even on day 3, they had a little bit of a line set up for Sea of Thieves finally. Like you could actually queue up. It still wasn't great because it was just they marginally added maybe like a dozen to 24 more people outside the queue line. So it still wasn't like a massive line where you could actually... It was
like a secondary line next to the original... Well, not next to the original queue, but offset a little bit so it wasn't like actively blocking a hallway structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, day 3, at least allowances were made to avoid the headaches of day 1. But
definitely where you saw improvement was the Super Mario Odyssey line, which went from day one's... Day 1 was kind of a complete non-line. I think people just sort of like crowded around the displays in a mass and slowly funneled toward the front as people finished the demo. Do you want to talk about the setup that they had on day 3, Hyle?
I do. I'm trying to remember. It was basically, so, on the Kongversation, we've talked about the Nintendo urinals, this magical place where Nintendo employees of both America and Japan go to piss in troughs, like long
It's a magical
troughs.
place.
Yeah, you've been there, right?
Mm-hmm. I've smelt it.
Yeah, you've dealt it, perhaps. And so this whole area, you've got the urinals, but you've also got this like cleared out, almost like backstage environment where anybody can go to, and they have round tables set up where people just collapse. You get a lot of like Japanese executives from gaming companies just all like huddled up around here, as well as just burned out E3 attendees who have just had it with the crowds. And so it was here where Nintendo actually set up a line on the edge and started the line. And then they put lanes. So basically with tape, they marked lanes on the ground. And you could get in these lanes and you knew clearly where you're supposed to go. And this was the queue line to get into the line for Super Mario Odyssey. And it wasn't quite clear, like, initially what the hell this line was for. But once you actually ask, they had a woman wearing a sombrero to fit into the theme of the Mexican world of Super Mario Odyssey.
Tostarena.
Yes. And then, so she guided us. And then... eventually you jump from the backstage area to right beside the Nintendo set. and then you get a line that snakes around the wall, and then you actually get inside New Donk City, where you're in these red barricades, just more lines, and then eventually you get up to the monitors, the kiosks that actually have the switches with the game. So it looks like a lot of chaos at first, but when you actually got into it, it made a lot of sense, and it kept everything moving at a steady clip. How long were we in line, Cameron?
Probably, I mean, for how, I want to, hit this home, this looked like a terrifyingly long line. I think we got in at midday, day 3, and I think there was some, hesitation, are we going to be waiting all day in this?
We ultimately just got in line because of the obligation at DK Vine. We said, look, we're here to cover this shit, and we can't be afraid about being in line all day when we have to catalog the New Donk City references. And so it was just ultimately suck it up, asshole, and get in line.
But we had asked aforementioned representative at the end of the line, what the estimated wait time was. I think she pulled it at about an hour and 45 minutes, which isn't too bad for how long that line looked. Not bad at all. And I think maybe at most we waited an hour and a half.
Not even an hour and a half.
That's not bad.
At
felt
most.
An hour, 10 minutes maybe. It wasn't bad.
It blew by. It was constantly moving.
I waited 3 hours last year for Zelda. That was a
and apparently, apparently that wasn't even the best for the day. As I recall,
Wow.
Dan from Killer Instinct Central, toward the end of the day, was reporting line waits as low as 25 minutes.
Yeah,
he had actually gotten in line multiple times to play the game on that day.
Right. Yeah, I think, day 3 this year, it had the effect that people, the 15,000 extra people started to funnel out early to beat the crowds, I think. And, last year, day 3 was the busiest day. The year before that, it was the least busy day, and it was the least busy day again this year. So you can never really gauge what day 3 is going to shake out to be. So we lucked out in that regard. But yeah, the line wasn't bad at all, and we will be talking about our impressions actually playing Super Mario Odyssey, as well as what references we were able to suss out. But I want to take a call real quick about Super Mario Odyssey, and I figure that would be a good segue into actually discussing the game. So here we go.
Hey, so if Donkey Kong is in Mario Odyssey, and Mario can throw his cap onto Donkey Kong and possess him, and then as Donkey Kong, Mario makes love to Candy Kong, do you think that'll be legal?
Jesus Christ, thanks for the call. No, I'm pretty sure if Mario possessed Donkey Kong with Cappy and then forced him to have relations with his girlfriend, that would still be assault. By all definition of the law, that would be assault. So thank you for the call.
I now have a new worst case scenario for what can happen if Donkey Kong appears in this game. So thanks for that, at least.
Sadly, that's still not the worst case scenario, Cameron. That's middle tier scenario.
I am excited for a possible cappied Donkey Kong because we know
everybody's
likes
thinking that. Yeah,
Nintendo really likes putting Mario against Donkey Kong in the context of them being in the same game. Even in one of the trailers for the newest Smash Brothers, in the Rosalina trailer, they kind of had that going on with them in Mario Kart, with them looking rivalrous. But I don't want them to do that because Donkey Kong is an intelligent person, as I'm sure I don't need to tell you.
No, he's a Rhodes Scholar.
A cappied or Bowser's top-hatted Donkey Kong, I think, is the way to go, because that could allow either Bowser to control Donkey Kong, and then it makes sense to fight him, or it could allow Mario to control Donkey Kong, and that would be probably better, because then you would be the one controlling Donkey Kong.
Although I don't really know
why
Mario would have to do that. Couldn't he just say, "Hey, Donkey Kong, help me fight Bowser"? The whole let me brainwash my frenemy here.
Well, there's a difference between
creepy.
like, come over and play some board games with me. Donkey Kong's like, oh yeah, for sure. Hey, come over and fight this giant demonic turtle. I don't want to do that.
Maybe just say, hey, Donkey Kong, if you do this for me, you'll get to see what you look like with a mustache.
Ooh, that's good. He might be into that.
Yeah, Donkey Kong's really never gone through that phase, has he?
Hair everywhere else, but not there.
Mitchell, I want to ask you. You weren't on the show floor, as I like to remind you time and again here.
Right.
But your
Thanks
thoughts.
for reminding me.
You're a big Nintendo guy. What are your thoughts on Super Mario Odyssey from what you've seen in the trailers and video footage and what have you?
So I kind of found out the main hook of this game through a source that shall remain nameless back in January, because they thought it was going to be announced for that Switch demonstration and wasn't. So they were like, ooh, don't say anything. So I've been sitting on the fact that Mario can possess people since then. And I'm so glad that we can all talk about it now. And I'm so glad it looks as good as it does. That trailer was incredibly exciting. The song in the trailer was fantastic. I loved it.
Oh, they were playing that
it.
during E3 in the New Donk City. I don't know what to call it because it's not a booth; it's a sprawling set.
Like I've just been calling it like a hub. Like the
set works, hub works.
So yeah, they were playing that on the
sense.
overhead speakers at E3.
On
So.
repeat, I could see that getting annoying.
Oh, well, actually, we could. I constantly heard it playing. Like it played intermittently, like not one repeat after the other. But I actually didn't get to listen to the full song until we got back home. And yeah, it's a pretty darn good song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so nice. My favorite trailer of E3, probably.
I can't
Mario
wait till
Odyssey.
it's in Donkey Konga 4. I really can't wait to pan to that song.
You could put bongos as Joy-Cons on either side of the Switch. It's perfect.
Don't give them any ideas. Don't give your mysterious source any ideas. Anyway, yeah. So I mean, Super Mario Odyssey. I played it. Cameron played it. We played it just for the Donkey Kong references. I played for the Donkey Kong references. I'm sure Cameron actually probably wanted to check it out on its own merits as well. But I'm a shitty person. And I have to say it was the most fun I've ever had playing a Mario game. Well, in the last at least 21 years. It was definitely the most fun I've had since Super Mario 64. And that was just, the New Donk City stage, what I got to play for it. And they gave us, 10 minutes to play it?
Yeah, about 10 minutes. And, I think my impression was pretty similar to yours. I had a lot of fun condensed into that little bit of time we had with it.
You got to choose between New Donk City and Tostarena, right?
Yes. And
did you both choose New Donk City?
Of course.
Yes.
Oh, gotcha.
We were there on official DK Vine capacity, so we would not choose the world that did not have any Donkey Kong references.
Mm-hmm. Though I had asked, I believe the rep who was pointing me toward the game, like, what's the difference between these two worlds? Or maybe she just told me. I think she described the desert world as more goal-oriented and New Donk City as more task-oriented.
Whoa. And
that might explain why New Donk City gave me such a Banjo-Kazooie kind of vibe in the brief time I had with it, in regards to how you got the objective items in this case the moons.
That's a well-spoken Nintendo representative. Usually you do not get that kind of actual interesting information out of them.
I've got to hand it to them. The Nintendo reps were on point this year. Everything about Nintendo was just firing on all cylinders compared to past years. And I mean, they had a bitchin' E3 setup, I have to say, and including their quote unquote booth babes. And there are a lot of booth dudes too, booth dongs. Yeah. It was remarkably less skeevy this year, and they knew their stuff. At least that they knew what they had to know. And I introduced myself when I got up, and I said, "Look, I've got to be honest. I am just playing this for the Donkey Kong references. I run DK Vine, which is a fairly large Donkey Kong related website, and he was like, "Oh, I'll help you out. I'll help you spot everything." I didn't clarify, though. He was pointing me towards all the arcade references. So I kept getting sidetracked, and I didn't know how to explain to him, no, actually, I'm not interested in that.
This would take more than 10 minutes.
Yeah. So you see, in 1994, a company called Rare, yada, 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 and that's the story of Mr. Pants. So I didn't have time to do that. So he kept,
I love that you're explaining this like, I gotta admit, I'm one of those guys. You probably get these all the time. The people that only care about the Donkey Kong Country references in your game.
Yeah. I didn't get into him with that. I was very polite, but he kept veering me astray, and he was like, "You'll definitely want to go over there." And Pauline was over there, and I was like, "Dude, I'm trying to see street signs here. I'm trying to see what characters on the street signs. I don't give a shit about Pauline. No offense to I Am Gibbon." And I know Pauline's in there. I watched the trailer. Okay, anyway.
But it's interesting, Cameron, I think. Cameron, you were comparing New Donk City to Banjo-Kazooie, right? Or was that Hyle? Just now.
I believe I drew the comparison to Banjo-Kazooie, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that Mario Odyssey, like, the 3D platformer that it reminds me the most of in the way that it's functioning is definitely Banjo-Kazooie, more so than any Mario game.
And is that, like, even ignoring the playable T-Rex and the sort of the Cappy control? I'm definitely getting shades of, like, Bottle's Revenge in how this mechanic works.
Yeah, in the two-player co-op mode is almost exactly Bottle's Revenge. The T-Rex transformation is big. The fact that the main collectible, moons in this game, power moons, are pretty much like Jiggies in that they're kind of spread all over the place, and you can find a bunch of them, and getting one of them doesn't take you out of the level like Power Stars used to be, meaning that they're more collectible-based and not mission-based, like every other Mario game has been before, even the quote-unquote more open ones like 64 and Sunshine. The fact that Cappy lives in your hat, which is kind of similar to Kazooie living in your backpack.
And I mean, he is a pair of googly eyes, so that helps.
Yeah, the 100 purple coins is kind of like 100 notes per world, although that can be said that Mario 64 also did that with 100 coins in a world gives you a star, but there were more than 100 coins. Now there are exactly 100 purple coins. There's tons of stuff that's very Banjo, so I'm not surprised that, Hyle, you like this more than any other Mario game, because it's practically a DKU game already.
Oh, I've got
even
one.
In Formula.
I've got one. Bob Hoskins, who played Mario, is considered a bear in some circles.
Okay.
So.
For sure.
It's great analysis on my part, I think. What? Yeah, no, it was a lot.
I'm glad you could add that, yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun playing Odyssey and the New Donk City stage or world or whatever you want to call it. It was the first time Cameron and I had ever played a Switch. So, unfortunately, they only gave us the option to play with the separated Joy-Cons, which it felt too loose and imprecise for my taste.
You need to put the wrist strap on, Hyle. Did you make sure it was nice and tight?
Oh, I put the wrist strap on, Cameron. I put the wrist strap on, but I need some stability in my gaming, and I felt like I was just, I'm always shaking because of caffeine and anxiety. So, no, I need a controller. Thank you, Nintendo.
Now, in terms of controls for this game, yes. Controlling the trajectory of Cappy after Mario throws Cappy is a motion-controlled thing. And as far as the treehouse was...
It can be a motion
you can do it with
thing.
buttons? How do you do it with buttons?
Yes. You just press the button. You can flick it, but you can also just press the button.
No, I mean the trajectory of it. Because you can curve it to the left, or you can make it go around you in a circle. And it looked like that was all only motion controls.
I don't know. Cameron, did you suss that out?
Yeah, I really can't speak to much about how Cappy functions, to be honest, because I was kind of more preoccupied with other aspects of the game, which I guess I want to get to at some point. But I think I was mostly using motion controls to fling Cappy, just because that's how I was instructed. And I think there was even one of the things I did while playing was I climbed this sort of like building under construction sort of area that was crawling with enemies. And at one point, the rep told me, like, I was about to come across an area that was just, like, crawling with these, I think, like, fly enemies. And she said, what you want to do is pick up both Joy-Cons and kind of swing them both at the same time. And she was saying this because apparently people had not been realizing they can do this and wasting their time in this section, dying. And Mario kind of did this, like super attack. It kind of, I'd say, was similar to, in effect, Ukulele's, I can't remember the name of the move. The one that sort of, like, clears the screen of enemies when you, like, use a sonic wave.
Sonar Explosion?
Thank you, yes.
That's cool.
But yeah, I think it was sort of like Cappy, like, went in an arc around Mario in, like, a spiral and sort of took out everything around him. And that was kind of neat to see. I don't know how that would translate to a button.
Yeah, all I did with Cappy was I continually threw it into the crotch of the New Donk City residents, which was fun because they recoil in pain and anguish. And I kept doing it, and the Nintendo rep probably thought I had some issues, but I was actually laughing out loud at their reaction, so yay for me.
Yeah, doing things that I think I'm not supposed to be doing is, like, sort of something I find myself doing a lot in 3D games, and this is what I wanted to get into before it came up. One of the very first things I did in the city when I realized you could is the scooter from the trailer. You could hop on and drive it around the city, and that's how you also got to factor in the HD rumble of the controller, which did work really well with the scooter. And the scooter, like, you could, like, jump around in it. You could get around the city a lot faster to see all the Kong references. And something that it made me want to do was, like, I'll bring this up as an example. In the original Halo, the most fun I ever had in that game was taking the Warthog vehicle and seeing as far as I could possibly take it before, like, because the game would put up roadblocks where you weren't supposed to drive it any further, and I would try to, like, wedge it into every single hallway and doorway until the game just had enough. Just trying to see as far as I could take it. I had seen the guy in the line in front of me try to take the scooter up this, like, building scaffolding. And I said, well, yeah, I'm going to do that because that looks like exactly what I'm not supposed to do. So I did that. I get to the top. Like, this involves, like, getting past, again, one of these roadblocks that you think you're not supposed to be able to pass, but then you remember the scooter can jump. And I get all the way up there, and there's one of the new donkers, as they're apparently called.
Oh, God.
To talk to, saying, like, oh, this is my scooter, like, parking space. And if you drive the scooter in, you get a moon for doing this. And the rep, like, right after this happened, said, like, oh, congratulations, I haven't seen anybody do that today. And my mind was just sort of blown. Like, I did this explicitly to screw around, and the game rewarded me for it.
Well, very nice. Well, the game also rewarded us with a plethora of Donkey Kong Country references. Some that were known before E3, a few that weren't. And I feel like between the two of us, we caught all of them. So, do you want us to go through them one by one here?
Do you want to just go in order of the ones we saw?
Well, let's do the street signs first of all. We saw street signs and we saw business signs, and some of these were actually part of the hub at E3, the Nintendo hub, the set for New Donk City. But some
how
of them,
possible would it have been if you really wanted to steal one of those signs?
Well,
you see, I like to think I could come back to E3 at some point.
Honestly, I think it would have been. You could have definitely grabbed it, and you might have been able to escape in the human crush of people, but ultimately you would have been caught. I think
I think they were also like bolted in, so you probably would have needed some kind of power tool to get at them.
They were pretty flimsy, though. The cranky sign I definitely saw swaying in the air conditioning. So I think I could have at least broken it off. I would just have to shimmy up there, slap it a few times, and then I would have to have an escape plan. And the escape plan is where I would ultimately fail.
Talk about like ultimate DKU merchandise. That's up there. That's got to be some of the most, because someone owns that now. It's in a warehouse. I'm sure Nintendo didn't like destroy them. You know?
Yeah, I don't even know what they do with this elaborate shit. Like, I know Rare, their E3 statues, they just display in their headquarters. But
I mean, obviously they keep them around because we saw 2 of them return.
Yes, for Rare. But I don't know what Nintendo would do with any of this shit. If Nintendo of America would take it, or if some of it would go back to Japan.
I think they have really like a Raiders of the Lost Ark style a warehouse just full of this stuff. Just park the cranky sign right next to the Ark of the Covenant.
All the unused North American 64 DDs, yeah. So here are the street signs we saw. Obviously, there's Cranky. And I'm sorry, I forget whether these are streets or avenues or parkways. I too little time to get that specific, but we did see the following characters referenced: Cranky, Ramby, Squawks, Espresso, K. Rool, and most controversially, Rattly. But they misspelled Rattly, Rattley. And as we all know, Rattly has no E in his name. So this is a huge injustice towards everybody's favorite rattlesnake animal buddy as seen in Donkey Kong Country 2 and Donkey Kong Land 2. And quite honestly, if Nintendo doesn't fix it, well, they're going to have some controversy on their hands.
Is he really the favorite? I mean, granted, I didn't see that cool-ass Spider Lane sign.
Favorite rattlesnake.
Okay.
Oh, of all the rattlesnakes in a DKU
no
game,
offense
it's probably up there.
No offense to beloved Banjo-Kazooie character Histup, but I think Rattly has him beat.
Is Histup definitely a rattlesnake? Yeah, I guess he would be, wouldn't he?
He would be because of the racial tropes that they were playing in with Ruby. Yeah. So anyway, we saw
those street signs.
Was Slumber one? I can't remember if he had the rattletail or not.
I don't know if Slumber was or not. I honestly have never thought about it. I just know Histup because Histup looks quite a bit like Rattly. So
okay, I just googled him. Yeah, it's just a regular snake tail. Disregard.
Yeah. Of course, does Rattly have a rattle on the end of his tail? No, but we just accept it.
It's hard to tell. It's just kind of like a green N64. Anyway.
we saw business signs,
Good
too,
pod.
for Diddy's Mart, Candy's Cafe, and a banana bagel sign. So everybody's favorite Donkey Kong Jungle Beat character does get a reference.
That's potentially big. Because do you think you can go in those places ever at all in the final game?
I doubt it. No, probably not. It's probably just window dressing, literal window dressing.
Not even Diddy Mart?
I don't think Mario can get a reservation at Candy's Cafe.
That's true.
So I have heard some theories or seen some theories online that this isn't actually a reference to any Donkey Kong characters, that the big point of New Donk City is that this is the city that Donkey Kong was named after, and in turn Donkey Kong named all of his friends after the locations in New Donk City, which I don't think that holds up, because why would K. Rool be named after a street in New Donk City? It's just
why would Donkey Kong get to name K. Rool?
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those too clever for its own good theories that doesn't hold up to Donkey Kong lore, although when does that ever stop Nintendo?
I mean, there's precedent in some Mario lore, like Yoshi was named after Yoshi's Island, not the other way around, but when you apply it to an entire cast, I think it kind of falls apart a little bit. Donkey Kong himself I could kind of see, but not if you extend it to all his friends and family and mortal enemies.
Right. So I think K. Rool being there, I could almost be on board with that theory begrudgingly if K. Rool wasn't referenced, but yeah.
If there's evidence of it in the final game, maybe, but Occam's razor says no.
Right.
So if you name a street to sound like the word cruel, isn't that kind of like a crime alley kind of thing? Just really on the nose?
Right, that's where Mario's parents were gunned down.
And there are towns called Murder and stuff like that, so it's
Intercourse, Pennsylvania. Yeah, right.
I think it was something I recall, and I could be just remembering wrong. Wasn't like wasn't it like the intersection of K. Rool and Espresso, which was kind of surreal? Yeah.
So it's weird that Radley is even referenced, though, because all of these are like Donkey Kong Country 1 references. And then, here's a DKC2 character who hasn't reappeared after that cycle of country and land games. Yeah, there you go. So the fact that they misspelled it shouldn't be overshadowing the fact that they reference Radley at all, because that is still pretty damn impressive. Now, we would love Squitter to be referenced somewhere, because he is, among the fan base, the most popular Animal Buddy, but or at least the most popular DKC2 original. But
I think he would have had to steal the sign if it said Squitter.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe he'll have a store, Squitter's Shoe Shack, where he can sell all of his shoes.
Those cool-ass sneakers, yeah. Anyway, yeah, Mario Odyssey was fun, and I look forward to it. People are asking me, are you going to buy a Switch now? Well, wait, yeah, I'm going to buy a Switch eventually, whether this
Maybe
is
after we recoup our losses from E3?
Right. It's not coming from the Patreon funds, that's for sure. That's Patreon funds the E3 expeditions and some technical gear for the site. But I'll be getting a Switch. Whether I get it for the launch of Super Mario Odyssey remains to be seen. But we are definitely going to be watching the game to see where Donkey Kong shows up, because he is going to show up. Nintendo wouldn't be this non-committal about it if they didn't have plans for him somewhere in the world, and it would be quite honestly weird if he didn't show up somewhere.
They've been weird before, though.
That's true.
Yeah. Possibly the most important DKU cameo game of all time in terms of impacting the DKU.
Well, like we were saying on the last episode, this is a strange E3 for Donkey Kong in that he is literally everywhere by being nowhere. He didn't make any appearances at E3 save for on some merchandise poster for a third party who was selling like 3DS and Switch accessories.
And classic NES carry cases for the discontinued system. Right.
Such a worthwhile accessory. Everybody put your stocks in classic NES carrying cases, because I feel like you can't go wrong there.
Sorry, NES Mini. That's what I meant.
It's a weird time for the DKU at all, not even just Donkey Kong, because we have like 4 games coming out that are all only possibly DKU, and you could honestly flip a coin on most of them. Like Sea of Thieves is DKU in the event of Captain Black Eye. Mario and Rabbids is DKU in the event of Donkey Kong. Odyssey in the event of Donkey Kong. The Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games of 2018 in the event that actually comes out. There's reason to believe that it won't, because Sega has not trademarked that game, but they have the summer for 2 years later. They may be done with the winter section of that series.
Well, global warming, yeah.
Yeah. Of course, you just don't have enough virtual ice. So there's like 4 games that would... Normally, we would just say, oh, this is the DKU watch for these 4 things, but all of them, and these are pretty much the only things DKU has going on for the future that's currently announced, all of them are iffy. It's like they wanted to put you, Hyle Russell, on your toes. The entire industry got together to want to do that.
I would say all of the... Well, I don't know about Mario and Rabbids, but I would say the rest of them will definitely be DKU, even if we don't have any public evidence at the moment.
It's just a matter of looking for when something shows up that we can say, yeah, I think is what's going to happen.
Concerning Mario plus Rabbids, or whatever the fuck it's called...
You got it. Don't be dismissive.
All right. Well, okay. I'm sorry. I'm not good with math, quite honestly. So,
equals Kingdom Battle.
Yeah. Mitch, you saw the pictures of the giant Rabid Kong statue in the convention hall, right?
Yeah, and also with Helmast. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Helmast didn't pose with him.
Not with the statue.
He posed with Rabid Kong himself for the selfie contest.
Oh, right. Which I don't think he won. He hasn't told me anything about that, but I'm pretty sure he would know by now had he won.
I think Ubisoft's just being coy. He definitely won.
How could he not?
I mean, he went through
most love to Rabid Kong.
He went through all that trouble to crop the render before they uploaded the corrected version to the site. Last day we checked, and they did have proper files for people to use. Yeah,
on the final day of the contest, they fixed the PNGs, so they were already cropped, and they didn't just have a white background. So, glad they were on the ball for this contest that they spent so much time planning. But this Rabid Kong statue, you saw it every time. It was in the hall on the ground floor level where Microsoft was. And so every time we would be going over to check out what was happening with Rare, we would see this monstrosity. And it was just funny how eventually, like, people were just throwing their trash under its ass. And
we've got a lovely picture of that, by the way.
Yeah, I took a picture of his ass just to confirm for the world that its posterior does not match the splendor of the original Donkey Kong. The glutes were not well defined.
Yeah, come on, Ubisoft, get with it.
I know. You got to have some bounce to those buttocks. But Mario Rabbids, we did not play the game at E3. Sad to say, it was available at Nintendo's hub and over with Ubisoft near Microsoft's setup. We did not play it on either setup because we literally couldn't be asked. We knew Donkey Kong wouldn't be showing up in whatever E3 demo they had, so it was just kind of a matter of, well, there's really no point, is there?
Well, it was also a matter of we had to pick our battles, and
yes,
when you pick a battle, you go with Sea of Thieves and Super Mario Odyssey.
Right. I'm not that really enticed by this game, and I'll be following it just to see if DK does appear, but it's one of those cameo games that it's just kind of there for me, even though Grant Kirkhope is doing the music. And I know, Cameron, you have some things you want to discuss about the music, some things you've discovered since we last talked.
Yeah, this is some stuff I sort of researched on my own, just like when I got home. Again, this is stuff you can't really figure out at E3, because even if you did get in line and play this game, I don't think you'd be able to hear much, considering the environment. And, I mean, that's my main point of interest in the game as of now. Weirdly, I'm okay with the crossover concept. It's the real-time strategy element that kind of puts me off. I'm just not a fan of that genre. If it's good and it works for you, that's great. But my main point of interest is learning that Grant Kirkhope is doing the music. We heard a little bit of it in the trailer before it was interrupted by a licensed song. And this is something I made sure to look up as soon as I got home, because it was bugging me ever since we saw the reveal for it. What is that song? That sounded like Back in Black at first. Apparently, it's a song by the band Airborne called It's All for Rock and Roll, which was written as a tribute to Lemmy Kilmister after his tragic passing last year.
It's an interesting link back to Mario through Lemmy, because Lemmy Koopa is named after him.
That's true. That is true.
Do you think the Koopa kids know that they're named after like 80s era like rock gods or
like Ludwig Van Halen.
yeah, yeah. That I mean, look at him. Clearly, he's was big in the hair metal scene.
Mm-hmm. I hope
does
no one tells
Nintendo
Lemmy.
even know that? Does Nintendo even know that these days? Like it was Nintendo of America who named them, right? That wouldn't have come from Nintendo.
Yeah,
Japan.
and like wasn't like Boo was originally like Boo Diddley. Like somebody was really
right.
looking into their like pop culture knowledge for Super Mario Brothers 3.
I forgot about Boo being Boo Diddley at first. That was like one of those things that you vaguely remember from like the proto player's guide that Nintendo Power put out for
Yeah.
it. And wow.
Reznor in Super Mario World.
Yeah, Trent
yeah.
Reznor.
It was even weirder though because in the Super Mario Brothers 3 cartoon, the one that eventually featured Milli Vanilli in that timeless episode, the Koopa Kids or Koopalines or whatever the hell they're called now were not called by their video game names because they were not named at when the cartoon was in development yet. So they all had completely different names in the cartoon, like Cutie Pie Koopa and
Cheatsy.
Yeah,
I remember
stuff like that.
Ludwig was Kooky Von Koopa, so they still managed to land on a Beethoven pun.
Odd.
Yeah,
Very odd.
that is strange,
yeah.
actually. Is his hair
Yeah.
that reminiscent of Beethoven that like everyone was on the same page with that?
That must be it's the only link, yeah. So
Interesting. But guys, I'm really excited about this Rabbids game.
Oh yeah, that's
Really?
right. We got
Are
on
you?
we were talking
it
about
looks
music.
amazing.
Right? So something we learned again after all this was said and done. They had streamed some gameplay of this, and people could overhear. They showed off I guess you would call this a boss fight with Rabid Kong, and Grant Kirkhope is definitely working on this game because the song playing in the background of that battle was a take on the Jungle Japes boss theme from DK64.
Mm-hmm.
That's strange. I mean, that's obviously Grant Kirkhope, but just working that in as a reference because Donkey Kong. But that's still very weird to even think about that is showing up in this game. It just drives home how surreal it is that Grant Kirkhope is working on it at all.
Yeah, this is the weird kind of pull you like only get because it's Grant doing it. Like
Right.
probably like the Lockjaw Saga remix in Tropical Freeze.
Yeah. Although, I just associate David Wise as being acceptable to Nintendo now, but like to have Grant Kirkhope, granted it's Ubisoft, but still, it's weird how these former Rare composers are kind of like, I don't know, like squirming their way into the recesses of these Nintendo games and helping make those Rare era connections that wouldn't have been made otherwise. Just very odd to think about.
Can he please be the voice of Donkey Kong again, please?
Yeah, if Donkey Kong's in the game, I want Grant Kirkhope to voice him. Absolutely.
I feel like it's a real possibility.
I mean,
It could happen.
Well, I think Nintendo tries to be on message, and they wouldn't want Donkey Kong to have another voice besides the one they're pushing right now, which is the Scooby-Doo kind of.
And no offense to the guy currently doing it, it's just, come on, Grant was my
Well, the guy
childhood
currently
Donkey Kong.
doing it did it in like 2010 for Donkey Kong Country Returns, and has the sound bites from that have just been reused throughout time, right?
Yeah, and to be fair to him, he was just recorded when he was suffering from hemorrhoids, so it's not like he even put any effort into it.
I'd also say, like, to the new voice actor's credit, when he first came in for, I don't think people bring this up much, when he first came in for Mario Power Tennis, either he was actively trying or he was actively directed to sound like DK's DK64 voice. You had a lot more of the subdued kind of, like, hey, cool kind of attitude about him. But I think when they brought him in to re-record for Jungle Beat, and he kind of got a lot more wild in the takes. That was the one that all these like future games pulled sound bites from, and that's what kind of stuck. I think in Returns he dialed it back again a little bit more.
Well, you have to, because Returns is far less manic than Jungle Beat.
Well, Tropical Freeze is just crazy with the...
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
The death noises I like. I think that's appropriate.
I think the fact that he did try to emulate Grant's take at first is what helps me, in my mind, accept that they're the same character, making the same noises. They just run the gamut from kind of cool and like this really like almost skeevy kind of like laid back gruff dude versus this wildly eccentric dog voiced gorilla man. I think that for whatever reason I can embrace both as the voice of Donkey Kong, even though I obviously prefer Grant's take because I'm biased. Well, I don't.
So
have
there's a lot to
anything
love
else
about
say.
this game. There's a lot to love about this game.
Okay, I don't have anything else to say about this game, but tell me what you love about it.
It looks incredibly deep mechanically. If you've ever played XCOM before, it's just like that, and that's the comparison everyone's making, and they're doing it because it's legit. It is a lot like XCOM. And XCOM is like a hardcore gamers type of game, and this really doesn't look that much shallower than XCOM. It's like a full actual strategy game. The characterizations of all the rabbits, I was expecting... Well, when I was watching the Ubisoft press conference and I saw like the little bit at the beginning with the rabbits eating a mushroom, and then one gets comically large and gets pressed against the screen, and then the crowd politely chuckles, I was expecting a really lazy cash-in between two things that always make money. And what I got was like, there was a developer in the audience at that Ubisoft conference. I don't know if you were watching this part, but like, he was crying. He was almost crying because he was so proud of his game. And Miyamoto was on stage introducing his game for him. I think his name is Davide something Frenchy.
Aww.
But the game looks like it had a lot of heart poured into it. When they said, there was a leaks of this game for months and months and months. So when Rabid Peach was described as having a propensity for taking selfies, I was like, come on, guys. But then when I see it done, it's like, oh man, she's taking the selfies. It's great. I think it's genuinely charming in a way that Rabbids to me have never been before. I was so out just on the idea of Mario plus Rabbids leading up to this E3. There was no way that was going to be interesting to me. Maybe I would get it because it's a Mario RPG, and those at least usually have some sort of characterization to them that are interesting. But I wasn't particularly excited about it. And after E3, I'm like, I'm all in 100% on this game. All the rabbits have great personalities, and Mario and Peach, and well, I haven't seen too much of Luigi and Yoshi yet, the actual Luigi and Yoshi. They also look like they're turning up their personalities a little bit for this game.
The only thing I would change about Mario's personality in this game is I didn't like how in the trailer he just seemed so accepting of his own rabid doppelganger at the end. I think it's okay, Nintendo, if Mario is just kind of put off by this whole affair.
But Hyle, don't you remember the 90s Mario character guide? Mario is tolerant.
Mario's a tolerant man. And, like, they didn't forget about it. That's been underlying this whole time, waiting for the one time where he actually had to be tolerant, and it's now.
I think Mario should have his limits. Even Mario could be pushed beyond the breaking point. That would have been, as far as, like, my comic sensibilities go, it would have been funnier to see Mario just kind of doing the facepalm kind of, I can't believe this is my life right now. But it's fine. You're right. The rabbits are more charming than one would initially assume them to be. It was a little bit more well-crafted than the usual minion-type humor, which I loathe.
Mm-hmm. There was this one scene in the trailer that I think they held off until the next day when it was re-emerging in the Nintendo press conference, where Peach Rabbid, or Rabbid Peach, like, checks out actual Peach, and, like, she smells her dress and everything, and, like, she's repulsed and actually intolerant of the human Peach, and I thought that was a funny bit. I don't know, maybe I'm easily impressed by this, and maybe there was never a chance that it was actually going to upset me. But I think it's great.
I definitely see where you're coming from a little bit, because, I mean, my mental image of the Rabbids, like, dating back to when they were first revealed, was, like, in Rayman Raving Rabbids, was just the main appeal was the screaming face they always did. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I saw that in anything for this game at all. And there was one bit where they did it, and it was done well. Like, there was, in the Ubisoft trailer, they had Mario, and the first party that you have, you always only have 3 of them, I think. The first party that you have is Mario, Rabbid Peach, and Rabbid Luigi, I believe. And there's I like how whenever we talk about this game, it just sounds like the entire Mario cast has rabies.
Yeah.
Which I would be okay with. If that was the game we got instead, that would have been delightful for me.
There's one scene where those 3, I guess the main characters of this game, of the 8, those 3 are their main ones, come across a bunch of enemy Rabbids and Goombas. And Mario gets ready to fight, Rabbid Peach gets ready to fight, and, like, Rabbid Luigi's looking around, not seeing what's going on, and then he looks at what Mario's looking at, and he's like, "Ah!" And he does the Rabbid yell. It's a good time, man. Good time for the whole family.
Yeah.
I feel ridiculous talking about this game as positively as I am.
Yeah, as I said, my main reservation is the genre, just from my personal history. But
same.
If this game can sell me on it, I mean, maybe this is like I don't know if a gateway drug, but maybe just like an accessibility point.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll try and give it a chance.
There is... Oh, so the backgrounds of this game are the one other thing I wanted to talk about, because it's a lot like Tropical Freeze and Returns, having just really interesting backgrounds. Sometimes there's characters back there, usually drones, making a mess of themselves. There's that stuff all over Mario and Rabbids. And often they're Rabbids, which is, like, less interesting, but sometimes they're Goombas just getting into some mischief. And, like, Mario stuff actually being weird. And you see that stuff in Paper Mario or the Mario and Luigi series, or even as far back as Super Mario RPG. And this is, it's here also because this is also a Mario RPG, but it's the first Mario RPG that's, like, regular graphic style. It's the traditional Mario style, so you can see them and you can appreciate them as, like, okay, this looks like a main Mario game, even if it's not a mainline Mario game. And I can still see those Goombas having a personality and getting into some antics and stuff. That makes me excited.
Is this the first Mario game in years that's been developed outside of Japan?
Well, I mean, there's been Smash Bros. Stuff. I guess that's still Japan, huh?
That's still Japan? Yeah, like, I'm trying to think, because it does seem a little bit... The sensibilities are a little bit different.
Mario versus Donkey Kong, but...
yeah, those are American. I'm drawn to Mario Hoops 3-on-3. Was that
Square Enix?
Oh, okay, never mind then.
Yeah, there's been surprisingly few examples. I guess Mario versus Donkey Kong, but
Next Level, I think, working on.
Oh,
aren't they a Western studio? Strikers and Dark Moon.
They're in Canada, right? Next Level.
I honestly don't know where they're from, but I know Strikers definitely had this attitude that I think Nintendo of Japan shied away from after they let that series have its course. They had that didn't they have that pitch where it was just, like, ridiculous, and they scrapped the whole game. Like it had, like, just extreme violence in it, and or at least, like, ridiculous body blows. I forget what it was for, but I remember it was one of those, like, this was a pitch they made, and look how absurd it is in comparison to the traditional Mario in-house style.
I mean, I'm honestly surprised Strikers got to be as extreme as it did.
Yeah.
And I did look it up. They're a Vancouver studio, so Mitchell is right. They are Canadian.
In the Twitch chat right now, Q Burns said Mario Spikers. I believe that was the one I'm referring to. Well, anyway, yeah. So Mitchell on board for Mario plus Rabbids equals nonsense, and you know what? Grant is enough to keep me vested in this, whether or not Donkey Kong is actually in it or not. So, I mean, yeah, DK Vine's going to keep its finger in its pie. Why?
Also, Grant's style seems to match Mario almost better than like anything else he's done since Banjo.
He is a good fit for this series.
He's a ridiculously good fit. Even with Yooka-Laylee, which should automatically match Grant's style because it's a new IP, somehow doesn't quite hit as well as Grant's music in Mario.
Yeah, I would say Grant might fit Mario better than he fit Donkey Kong. No offense to his Donkey Kong 64 work, but...
he fit what Donkey Kong 64 was.
Yeah, I think, even to this day, we kind of think, David Wise or Eveline Fisher are like the sound of Donkey Kong, where Grant Kirkhope has more whimsy to him. Now,
Grant literally is the sound of Donkey Kong, but
well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
I'm just eating up time.
You are, yeah. We have to hit the 3-hour mark on this episode, or else it won't be an effective podcast. So, moving on, away from Nintendo. Bye, Nintendo. It was fun. Thank you for having a good setup this year. Props where props is due. You definitely were the king of E3 stage design and line cues this year. So, bravo. Night and day compared to the past 2 years. I do want to bring up real quick, both Yooka-Laylee and Rare Replay were actually playable at E3.
What?
But, yeah, they... so
Yooka-Laylee for the first time ever, by the way.
Right, because Yooka-Laylee was only behind closed doors last year, and in Andy Robinson's car the year before that. No, Yooka-Laylee was being shown off on this PC hardware, like this gaming PC or something. Forgive me, I forget the actual company.
Lenovo, I believe.
Here. Okay, you are going to get a plug here on the Kongversation. But they were demoing Yooka-Laylee, to try out their hardware, while Rare Replay was being shown off by this third-party Xbox controller.
Hyperkin.
Hyperkin, wow, you're on top of things.
Yeah, which is weird to see. They're actually the company that make the sort of retro clone consoles like the Retron 5, and they've got an official licensing deal with Microsoft to produce sort of this reproduction of the original Xbox controller, the Duke controller, and they were showing that off, as well as what Rare Replay was being used to demonstrate was this sort of, it was an Xbox One controller, but sort of laid out like this sort of like I want to say like a arcade like SNES hybrid kind of thing.
Wait, so it was a Rare Replay specific controller?
No. They were just using Rare Replay for people to try out the controller.
Oh.
Yeah, like they'd queued up, I think, Battletoads, and people moved on to other games, but Battletoads seems like a good fit for this kind of controller.
That feels like a good fit for that kind of demonstration anyway, because there's so many different play styles and control styles that you need to jump between in Rare Replay.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. When I went back over there, they were playing Conker's Bad Fur Day, so it was nice to see, and it was funny because for all the massive crowds of E3, especially this year, on the peripheral sides of all the halls, you would find a respite in these like weird. Not weird. That's a wrong term to use. But in the like more indie booths, and also the accessories and hardware, and like, oh, here's our gaming chair that we're selling. You would find a lot more elbow room in these areas, and so it was always nice to kind of duck into these spaces to get some air and to just stretch your legs. I would do social media blitzes in these spaces where I could actually think and not be trampled. And yeah, you'd see some cool stuff. And I saw a lot of gamers, giving this stuff the time of day because they too needed a break from the massive hordes of people. So I think, E3 going forward, you're going to see companies like this. Hopefully, they're not going to get pushed out because they're definitely getting more eyeballs than they would be otherwise. These, third-party accessory companies and also these indie kiosks who, they set up. There was a college of design or something that was showing off a game they did. So it was cool to see, all the things on the sides away from the big boys. And I'm glad we were able to, kind of peruse all that stuff as well.
Although they are both games that you've played before.
Yeah, I didn't stop and play Yooka-Laylee and Rare Replay because that's a waste of E3 in my opinion. But I'm just saying I'm glad that these companies were getting attention, even though obviously they weren't the focus of E3. Enough gamers were there to kind of funnel over and give their products a shot.
Yeah, I even saw a Killer Instinct as part of a sizzle reel at one of these booths. It's weird. The entire history from 2014 on was visible at E3 this year somewhere.
Mm. Yeah. So let's go back to Rare and have a call to take here, and then we'll get into what happened with Rare on day 3 of the show.
Remember me? Yes, I hope to see. Listen, at E3, did you see any companies that Rare would be better off than Microsoft? I mean, would it be great if a third party owned Rare? Because wouldn't there be a better chance they would make Donkey Kong games somehow? Before Microsoft popped up. Duck games, anyone?
I have no idea what you're talking about, ILDC. I am at a loss, but you did call in with another call, so God help me and let me take that.
Hey, I just realized your phone number is in Washington, D.C. Why?
Yes, the new DK Vine hotline number, which you can call at 1-202-630-VINE, is a Washington, D.C. number. And the reason for that is because DK Vine is the deep state that you're always hearing about. So there you go. All right, Rare. Where were we? Yes. So now, Mitchell, you weren't in the convention hall this year. Last year, do you recall, as E3 went on, how more and more people were talking about Sea of Thieves inside E3? So, day 3, it was one of the most talked about games at the show, and their line obviously grew and grew as the show went on.
Yeah, that was definitely a thing. I understood in 2015 that Sea of Thieves would someday become something everyone's going to get excited about. But it was not there yet. And in 2016, same kinda. But then, once people were starting to play it, throughout last year's E3, just the talk of the town went swirling around about Sea of Thieves, and people understood that, oh no, this is a demo you gotta do. Based on some other people I follow, their experience at E3, that kind of happened this year with Dragon Ball FighterZ. Everyone liked that. But last year was Sea of Thieves, and all of the media people started to like it, and the people at home still had no idea about it. I think this year's demonstration, the gameplay demonstration at the Xbox press conference for Sea of Thieves, was the first thing that, I'm seeing people everywhere saying, okay, that was what I needed. I'm now on board. I'm now excited about it.
Yeah. So Sea of Thieves, I mean, obviously this was the third E3 it's been shown on, the second E3 where it's been playable, so that newness is kind of worn off a bit, but it was still a game that by day 3, and Cameron can attest to this, you were hearing people talk about it everywhere in E3, including the Super Mario Odyssey line. And you would hear just like the tail end of conversation, but you would hear, "Oh, Sea of Thieves! Yeah, try Sea of Thieves."
It was really surreal.
Yeah,
just as you said, like you would just be walking along, and suddenly suddenly would funnel into your ear Sea of Thieves. Somebody was just having a casual conversation about it. We overheard someone talking about it in the Super Mario Odyssey line. We'd hear them around the Nintendo and Sony booths. Obviously, around the Microsoft Rare area. I struck up a conversation about it in the line for Sonic Mania. It's just kind of weird how casually you'd hear it thrown around. And, I mean, that even extended to, like, outside of E3 or when I got home. Like, I had people on social media, like, asking me about getting into the Insider program, or, hell, co-workers, like, telling me about it when I got back. And I'm just dumbfounded because these aren't the circles in which I normally overlap with these people, and it's really surreal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for me, we live in such a bubble in DK Vine, or at least I do, that to have that bubble burst or maybe extended broadly, it's so strange to me that Sea of Thieves, and same thing happened to me when I got back. People were asking me about Sea of Thieves, and in like just like in person in day-to-day life. So
everybody is covered in the sticky bubble soap goo now.
Yeah. So it is weird to kind of have the safety of your, like, it's like a niche, like, local band that you're really into suddenly hit it big, and then the special relationship you have with them is now diluted because everybody knows it. This is what it feels like to be a hipster, and I don't quite care for it. But
some of us want really, this new IP to succeed.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I would like Rare to actually make a game that isn't a sports game and have it do extremely well for the first time in over a decade, Hyle.
I am joking. I do not have a mustache, nor do I wax it. I'm sorry. So, anyway.
Sorry, I'm dog.
Yeah, but it's really cool to see. I think that's why we were so discouraged that people couldn't get in line for Sea of Thieves this year, because this is a great opportunity for Rare to show off the game to people who wouldn't necessarily sign up for the Insider program, who just couldn't be bothered, and this would be a great shot to get good press and get good word of mouth coming out of E3. But some people did get to play Sea of Thieves at E3, and that was the cast of HBO's Westworld.
That's fun.
Okay, so this is how E3 works. Now, you might recall us discussing this on the Kongversation in the past, how in Los Angeles, there's a hierarchy in the entertainment world. So video games are pretty low on the hierarchy list, on the tier. You've got movies and television, that's king. And when E3 is in town, the rest of Los Angeles can kind of be dismissive towards it because, it's just that nerd shit. And within E3 itself, there's a hierarchy because you've got the big media like your IGNs and your whatnots, your GameSpots, and then you've got shit houses like DK Vine who absolutely do not belong there. And so, you've got hierarchy upon hierarchy, tiers upon tiers, first class and coach. And so what happens at E3, though, is that celebrities from outside the industry, I'm not talking about like your celebrity like Miyamoto or Reggie or Phil Spencer, I'm talking celebrities like Soulja
Actual
Boy.
ones.
Yeah. So celebrities do come to E3. And because it's Los Angeles and because we live in a fiefdom. We live in the Middle Ages, apparently. They get preferential treatment at E3. It's like when Justin Bieber goes to Disney World. So basically what happens, and I don't know how this is orchestrated. I'm assuming it's orchestrated through E3 itself, through the people who put it on. But their agents get in touch with whomever, and then accommodations are made for the visiting celebrity so that they can play any game they want to. And it's all scheduled out for them because they don't have to worry their pretty little brains about it. And so what happened was at this E3, we didn't see too much in the way of celebrities, but that might have been because of the 15,000 extra people drowning them out. But the cast of HBO's Westworld had a day off. And so they decided to come on the last day of E3. And when we say the cast of HBO's Westworld, we are not sure what that entails because Cameron and I were both just opted not to bother sticking around to check this out. But around noon Pacific time, they strolled into the Sea of Thieves booth and got to kick everybody off the kiosk and got to play Sea of Thieves. So
out of everything, I'm glad that they're into Sea of Thieves. Because imagining a pirate season of Westworld that'd be fantastic.
Right. Why wasn't it the cast of Black Sails or something? Like, why Westworld? Okay. But, I mean, I assume they were playing a whole gamut of games, and Sea of Thieves was just their noon appointment. But
I don't know. Maybe Anthony Hopkins was there, and he said he really, really wanted to try Sea of Thieves. And are you really going to stop him?
Well, the actual answer is what Hyle said. It's that they were checking out other things too. But there is a possibility.
I'm joking,
there's hints that other theme parks in the Westworld universe exist. So there could be a pirate one. There could be.
Now, well, yeah, I mean, it's based on a movie, and didn't the original movie have a sequel called Future World or something to that effect? Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a hint specifically in the show. I guess this is spoilers for Westworld. Oops. But there's a samurai world hinted at.
Very nice. Well, I have not seen
pirate,
HBO's Westworld.
Yeah,
I've not seen HBO's Westworld. So.
I think this is why we both kind of cut our losses with this, is because neither of us have seen Westworld, and while we know some of these, actors, it just didn't really feel, what's the word? Like genuine to go over there.
Well, what were you guys going to do without me, with neither of you having seen Westworld? What were you going to talk about on this podcast?
We were just going to talk about... Now, I doubt Anthony Hopkins was there, but just the absurd visual of... now, granted, Anthony Hopkins is in the new Transformers movie, so, whatever cultural, whatever, ivory tower he can stand in has pretty much been decimated, so... Sure, Anthony Hopkins could have been playing Sea of Thieves and having a jolly old time.
Yeah, I think that ivory tower now transforms into Metroplex.
I assume James Marsden was there, and if I know anything about the career and characters played by James Marsden, his wife probably left him from Captain Bones at the end of it. But I don't know if Evan Rachel Wood was there. Who else is
she
in?
She might have sung
Westworld?
a Beatles cover song with some really surreal imagery.
The guy who's also in Always Sunny in Philadelphia. What's his name? He's the one in Sunny in Philadelphia that always is very sweaty and wears the bathrobe.
Oh, the McPoyle guy.
Yeah, the blonde-haired McPoyle is in Westworld.
I missed the McPoyle playing Sea of Thieves. That's kind of disappointing. The McPoyles would fit really well in the Sea of Thieves world.
I'm kind of glad I don't know which one of them held the controller.
That's why you got sick, Cameron. No, but yeah, there's. I'm not into celebrity culture anyway, and I just don't care to gawk at celebrities because I honestly just don't give a shit. If it was like maybe if it was Paul McCartney or Ringo Starr playing Sea of Thieves, that would have been enough to entice me. But for me, like the bigger celebrity there is the rare people. Craig Duncan is a bigger celebrity to me than James Marsden. So I don't really care to stick around and watch it. So we were like saying, should we go back at noon and just witness this oddity? But we ultimately decided no. Let's just get in line for Mario. But we did get to play Sea of Thieves, the very last session of the day. We got to hold the very controllers that the beloved cast of HBO's Westworld touched, and so we got to experience a little bit more of Sea of Thieves at the tail end of E3. And that means we also got to see finally we got to see the storms. And it was frustrating because all these people in the DK Vine community who are in the technical alpha were getting to experience the game while we could not get to play it at E3. So it was nice to finally be in a storm. Cameron, what were your thoughts on being caught in a Sea of Thieves weather event?
Well, first off, like literally everything else in Sea of Thieves looks gorgeous. Kind of makes it hard to concentrate on the fact that you literally have to be all hands on deck in the stormy weather. Was it during this that we ran aground on some rocks?
It was either before or immediately after, because we didn't know that your ship could now take damage when you run aground. So that was a shock. I was like, I didn't know why we were taking on water all of a sudden, and yeah, that's something that they revealed in this E3 build.
That's interesting. So you're going to have to make really sure that you don't get too close to any island you want to check out.
It's going to make drinking and driving the ship really difficult now.
I think there was also something else that came up that I didn't pick up on right away. I think whoever was narrating our session explained it to me. Was it James who was doing our session? I can't remember.
I was so exhausted by the end of day 3 that it's all a blur to me. I do not remember.
Yeah, sorry guys, we love you. Yeah, in the storm, we had to adjust sails at one point because obviously storm wind gets weird. You could actually tell which direction the wind was blowing by the direction the rain was falling.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that was beneficial. I, however, blasted myself out of a cannon, and I actually landed on another cruise ship, which was apparently not an easy feat. Apparently, not many people were able to do it during E3. So I felt very proud of myself. I even got patted on the shoulder but for doing so. But unfortunately, because I was so exhausted, I blasted myself on an enemy ship carrying only a bucket used to bail out the water in our ship. And I was so tired, I didn't have time to switch to my weaponry, so I was immediately slaughtered after landing. But still, impressive that I was able to pull it off all the same.
And of course, meanwhile, you were doing all this, I was on the island, completely ignorant of things that were going on as the ship sailed away, running into skellies, which something I found out that was pretty funny to experience firsthand was I don't know if this happens every time, but upon killing a skelly, it exploded into bony bits like the skeletons in Grabbed by the Ghoulies, so that was really funny to see.
You see, people, it's all connected. But and then unfortunately they cut off the game because over the PA then they said attention everybody, it's now 5 p.m. and E3 is closed. And they make a big to-do about it. E3 2017 is now over. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And so they were the security was very adamant about kicking us out as quick as possible. They were just do you have a Xbox pass? Then you got to get out of here. You got to get out of here. But Cameron, you oh, hi Jessie the dog. You had So nice to have Jessie the dog back here on the conversation. We did not leave when security told us to because Cameron had some things he wanted to give out to Rare.
Yeah. Where to start with this? Yeah. So at some point during the show, I think it was like on day 2. I knew I wanted to do something for the Rare folks that were there, and I can't stress enough how nice everybody was that we met. It's truly indescribable. Day 2, we got to talk with Craig Duncan for a little bit, and I do want to get into how sweet Craig Duncan is. I'll share sort of one anecdote, and how you might be more used to this than I am. This is more new to me. We would hang around the Sea of Thieves booth every now and then just to sort of see how things were going on. And I know you and I were talking, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of our eye, we see Craig Duncan. I think he was either talking to some fans or talking to some media people, and I think we both mutually had this moment of, well, this is really cool, but he looks busy. We let's not bother him. He came darting over toward us to say hi.
Yeah. Every time we would be around the Sea of Thieves, both just checking it out, and Craig Duncan was nearby, he would always make a point to come over and talk to us, which he did not have to do because who are we? We're fucking nobody, and that's just the kind of guy he is. He is absolutely genuine, 100%. Such a nice guy, and so accommodating of Rare fandom, and he is the best choice to be leading Rare at this point in time. I mean, my God, I just can't say enough nice things about him, so I won't. So
unbelievably sweet man, and that was kind of a common theme like the entire time. Like, we know those guys are there to work, but
and talk to important media. That's the thing. We're just there. We're just two clowns who are there, to kind of piss in the wind and make a mockery of the video game industry.
But everyone there was so polite and just eager to strike up a conversation with us. Like, just to name a few, like Cameron Thomas, James Thomas. Had a really nice talk with Peter Hentz for a while.
Rabbit Kong.
And Mike Mike Chapman. Just I need to stop dropping names. I'm going to feel bad if I leave people out.
No, it's only dropping names when you only refer to them by their first name, because then it becomes shitty and skeevy. When it's talking to Mike, Mike Chapman from Rare.
Just asking Greg what his favorite brother's bear was.
Yeah, which
of course Barnacle.
You did, yeah. We never dared ask Greg. Well, we couldn't find Greg Mails again at E3 2015 because he just took off to Santa Monica and avoided the whole show. Greg Mails was not there. Yeah, Greg Mails was not there this year, nor was Robin Beanland, unfortunately. They were both back at the home base, which probably for the best, considering how crowded it was. But it was disappointing not to be able to see them.
Robin does not need to catch con crud before he goes on his extended bike excursion.
Yeah.
Ooh, true.
But yeah, I mean, everybody from Rare is so nice. But Cameron, you wanted to give them a larger version of your Rare Archipelago map.
Yeah, so let's, I guess, go over this from the beginning.
Lord. At
one point when we were talking to Craig Duncan, I said, I do have some things I'd, like to give out to you on the team, but I just worry I won't have a good opportunity to do so. And
Craig Duncan's probably thinking you shaved your body hair and you're going to give them to us in little baggies. Which was the case, by the way. That was the case. But fortunately, we also had more to give them.
Yeah. So he just quietly told us, like, look, just come by, toward closing one of the days, and I'll make sure you have the time. And like a couple other people found out about this. I think Peter and Cameron did. Apparently, word spread among the team by the last day that this was going to happen. So right as things are winding down, Craig calls everybody together, and we're right in front of the Sea of Thieves queue, which has now been cleared out, so it's just a nice open platform. And I have a portfolio with me that I pull out, and I have the updated version of the Rare Archipelago map. And I explain, like, I've tried to print off enough. I didn't know how many people we'd run into. I don't know if everybody got one. Anyone from Rare listening, just give me names. I will, like, mail these over if I have to. I gave out copies of the Rare Archipelago map. I had some stickers to give out that I had printed from work of Greg the Grim Reaper and Cameo.
By the way, these are stickers you drew. These aren't the Patreon exclusive stickers that you can get for $1 by supporting DK Vine.
You're not going to get anything with Cameo on it supporting DK Vine, sorry.
No. These were actually professionally drawn and looked like the characters. They were not doodles with legally dodgy names that in no way reflect the actual characters they're emulating.
Oh, thank you, Hyle. It makes it sound like I know what I'm doing. So yeah, I had some of those, and I had some smaller prints of the Royston drawing I did for Banjo Party, the compilation illustration zine from Blank Party. I think some copies of that are still available online. That's a plug for them. So anyway, immediately after I finished this, like every Rare employee there seemed to be in attendance. Every single one of them,
great.
clapped at once and cheered, and man, it was all I could do not to cry on the spot. Just there. You ever have a moment in your life that, like, you know, I am going to take this to my grave? Like that was one of those moments for me. That is going to stay with me, and yeah, thank you to everyone who was there. That was so incredibly sweet, and that is definitely going to stick with me.
I'm smiling ear to ear. I didn't know this is how it went down. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and then we everybody there posed for a picture. So it was the whole Rare team, me and Cameron and the other Rare fans in attendance. Chad, Amir, Dan from Killer Instinct Central, Adam, the ACZ was there on media credentials as well.
And I had no idea they were doing this. The print actually was in the photo. I was in one of the back rows and couldn't see this until after they posted it on social media.
Yeah. So it's like a Sgt. Pepper-esque picture, and in the center is them holding up the Rare Archipelago map. So how cool is that?
Yeah, I have no sarcastic or snide funny remarks to make about this. I was genuinely heartwarmed to have this happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, we stress this again and again here on the show, but the people at Rare are absolutely 100% genuine. They're the sweetest, nicest people, and it's just baffling to me that they even exist at all, because by all, accounts, they have every right in the world to be complete assholes, because they would be entitled to be, because they're all very talented, busy people, and yet they go out of their way to indulge and support their fans, which is terrific. I could just go on and on and on about how lovely they all are.
Incredibly kind, enthusiastic, and welcoming, and genuinely so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
From a non-emotional angle, this photo you guys took with the map, it's also kind of like a verification of the correctness of that map. If you think about it, it's a bit of an endorsement.
Well, Rare has come around. They have used the Rare Archipelago terminology a bit. At least some Rare employees have used it from time to time.
That's how they referred to it when I was introduced to them.
Yeah.
Like, the one who drew the Rare Archipelago.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And I
It's
mean,
pop-
Has
it's
Greg
pop-
Mails done that? Because I feel like if he's done it, that's the goal.
incidentally, that in itself was another emotional thing. Like having people from Rare know who you are and praise something you've done. Like no,
Oh, yeah.
I'm here. No, I'm here to geek out and be a mess over you.
Rare Archipelago it's been referred to that on Rare's website at the very least. So that's score one for DK Vine. That's one of my proudest accomplishments is getting a Rare Archipelago to be recognized as a thing that exists. And then, of course, Cameron's map helped really sell that. So
Yeah, I might have to start believing in it.
I don't know how New Donk City is going to affect things, but at the very least, we got Rare on board.
Yeah, I did get a few snide comments along the lines of, you realize how big you're going to have to make this for Sea of Thieves, right?
Yeah,
Right.
That's
Which,
wow.
if you need any credence towards Sea of Thieves being DKU, I think all those little comments definitely help. So
Maybe they'll
eventually-
say that Sea of Thieves, like in the lore or something, maybe they'll say it's Caribbean.
Well,
that
the
could
thing
kind of
is,
mess things up.
Rare Archipelago is kind of a misnomer because it's way too big to be an actual archipelago.
So it's just all
just
of the Atlantic
I mean,
Ocean?
essentially, yeah. It's this weird string of islands in the Atlantic Ocean that are all interconnected and yet somehow evade the sight of modern polite society.
And
so,
of course, the map itself is like not entirely literal. It's a little bit shorthand figurative to just get everything kind of in the same place.
right.
I don't think these things are actually that close together in the story we've concocted for ourselves. And something nice about Sea of Thieves is it can kind of do its own thing with geography because it's so... I mean, at least as far as we know, for all we know, this could take place 50 years in the future. I don't know. But the sort of 1600s thing that it seems like they're going for, this vague era long past, we can just sort of make up the excuse, yeah, geography shuffled a little bit in that time.
Well, I've already accepted in my brain space that this takes place to the west of the rest of the Rare Archipelago. It is closer to the Caribbean, but it's not in the actual Caribbean. So it's just its own kind of unique string of islands. So anyway, yeah.
I would love it if it's not entirely clear, and maybe you don't even notice at first, but like one of the islands in Sea of Thieves just is a very, very primitive, early, uninhabited version of the Isle of Hags or Donkey Kong Island or something like that. I guess it would probably have to be Isle of Hags, couldn't be Donkey Kong Island.
You might be able
But-
to get away with Donkey Kong Island. Maybe they just haven't carved the head in yet.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are ways to do it, and I wouldn't put it past. I very much doubt they would even, go for the DK Island reference, but I could see Isle of Hags or, something like something in the general shape of it and some cheeky references, sure, absolutely. But
Peninsula
I also,
of the Sea Witches.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So we had to leave E3 at that point because security was really getting pissed off that we were still hanging around. It was so funny because I remember Craig Duncan was trying to negotiate with security, like, oh no, can they stay around a little bit? And they're like, no, they've got to go.
See, I didn't catch that.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh no, this is awkward.
I mean, I know, like, after everything that happened, I kind of wanted to get out just because I was about to, like, just emotionally break down in front of all these nice people coming up to thank me. But also just, I wanted to leave on that high note. That's not going to get me higher.
You want to leave on that George Costanza high note. You don't want to play out your moment of triumph. So I think Dan from Killer Instinct Central, which is his official name, by the way, it's on his birth certificate. Check it out.
Check the credits for the movie he's an extra in.
Yeah, exactly. He was the first to leave, so I was like, okay, it's socially acceptable now. We can leave without a seeming rude.
And I mean, mind we did have to get to the airport. This wasn't just our social engineering.
No. We had to drop the rental car off and get to the airport with plenty of time. And luckily, like, we got to the airport, I think, before the convention crowd really hit LAX. So I got through security in no time flat. And I don't know about your case, but it was really nice to get to the terminal with plenty of time to spare. And then I saw people coming in still wearing their cappy visors and E3 badges and various paraphernalia. And I'm just like, whew, I beat the rush.
Yeah, it was surreal. I stopped in the airport to get some food. I had some time before my flight. I sit down, and table across from me are some, like, devs and maybe, like, higher-ups from Call of Duty, like, still wearing the shirts.
Wow. Yeah, you get that at LAX, and, like, immediately post E3. And the past 2 years, I'd been so miserably ill while waiting in the LAX. 2015, my flight was canceled while I was coming down with a convention flu, so that was miserable. I eventually got on a flight and then got thrown up on, as I related on the Kongversation. But and then last year I was just feeling like terrible, but luckily no vomit projectiled my way.
Those subway bags just need to become standardized.
Well, I should point out, when we were leaving the Los Angeles Convention Center,
yes.
we were walking to the parking garage we were parked in. By the way, can I just point out, this parking garage, it was parking garage C or something, across the street from the convention center, the most efficient parking garage in Los Angeles.
That sounds fucking nice.
I have to give props to the people who designed it, but also the very lovely people who would take our money every day. Very kind, completely out of the ordinary, very easy to get parking in this, and very easy to leave. And seriously, I don't want to really give the actual directions to get to this because I don't want to spoil it. But it was a pleasure parking in your garage, good people of Parking Garage C. So thank you. So we were walking back to the parking garage, and in a car, just like at the light, we saw the Skullduggers, two of the Skullduggers, the pirate band, Rare hired for the second year in a row to perform songs that Robin Beanland composed, and in some cases Chris Alcock penned, but also just other pirate and sea shanties. They are the pirate band from Disneyland, although they go by a different moniker there. They're a little bit more dirtied up when they're the Skullduggers. They're a little bit grimier and more hardcore. And two of the male performers from the Skullduggers were in their cars, like carpooling away from the convention center. And Cameron, you pointed it out to me, and it was just the most surreal sight seeing them in this modern car at the traffic light, waiting to do
it's still in full pirate regalia. They just left straight from the convention center.
Still dirt on their faces. So
I like that they were traveling together.
I know, right? They were still crewed up. So I think the window was down, so I just yelled out, "Grog Bales!" which is, as if I were, like, requesting the song. And the guy in the passenger seat looked like he was startled, like, what the hell is happening?
And then there was this sort of, like, mutual moment of realization who they were staring at.
Yeah, they turned their head, and I think he recognized me, and he just kind of gave me the finger gun and like, kind of laughed, like, oh, thank God, I'm not going to be murdered. So
we all had kind of a laugh about it. It wasn't the middle finger gun he gave you. It was,
no. It was a friendly finger gun. So
perfect epilogue to the day.
Just one of those, like, only at E3 moments to have one last interaction with musician pirates driving away from the convention center. But I did not get sick this year. My bill of health held up. I was exhausted, and when I got home, I slept for 30 hours that weekend. but I myself did not get sick. Cameron,
I got a cold.
Fair as well.
Yeah. I think it was just the slow build up over time. And I did have, the fun you get at the airport of people on their way to their seats coughing in your face casually. And, apparently I was Hyle's germ shield this year.
Well,
Nice.
I also had a strict regimen of vitamins. I was chomping the vitamin C, and I had the hand sanitizer, which you use from time to time. But I think ultimately some germs slipped by your immune system. Well, I somehow kept enough of a stronghold in place.
I sincerely hope I wasn't like a patient zero for half the staff of Sea of Thieves.
I think I mean I'm sure some of them do get sick, but I think they're also protected. They've got the hand sanitizer, they've got the wipes, they've got.
Was that new this year? The wipes for all the controllers at E3?
No, they do that. Not every company does that though. So I noticed they didn't wipe down the Joy-Cons before I got my hands on them. So I definitely used some hand sanitizer after playing Odyssey. So that might have been where you caught it with Super Mario Odyssey. So I don't know, but yeah, it's first year I didn't get sick, so I don't necessarily think you have to get sick at E3 now. So it's given me hope and optimism that if you stay hydrated enough and you take care of yourself. Now, granted, I got 2 hours of sleep like the last night we were there, so I definitely didn't take care of myself to the degree that I should. But
I think maybe the germs just took one look at your body and said, no thanks.
Yeah, I was being propped up by nothing but caffeine pills and adrenaline, so I was probably not the best vessel for them to spread their wares. Anyway, so final thoughts about E3. Mitchell, we've been dominating the conversation here for the last little bit. What were your thoughts on the outside, minus the various fine Mexican restaurants around LACC? What were your thoughts on the show? And besides the Rabbids game, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm looking forward to Sea of Thieves a lot. Always have been, though, so that's not a big change. I did get to see... I was at the Xbox press conference live, and that was my first time seeing any of those live. That's a good time. If you're in the position where you could ever swing that, make it happen for yourself, because that's fun. Sea of Thieves, Mario Odyssey, Beyond Good and Evil 2 is probably like my other really, really big one. That was a really great trailer. Ubisoft killed it this year. Ubisoft had the best press conference. I'm just saying E3 stuff at this point, so I'm cut me off. Yeah. Ubisoft is good.
See, I don't think we watched the Ubisoft conference because I think it was we were leaving for the Galen Center because we got into the Xbox Media Showcase, which is not the briefing, but it's basically a party with free drinks and you get to play the games with Microsoft executives. And I'm not bragging there because you got into the actual briefing, which we did not this year. So we each got our little moment of glory. But yeah, the Ubisoft thing was happening when we were having to leave, and my phone started blowing up because of fucking Rabbit Kong while we were waiting in line to get into the Galen Center.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't manage to see the entirety of the Ubisoft conference. I did, however, check out the Beyond Good and Evil 2 trailer. I definitely think Nick would have a very different view than you, Mitchell, of that trailer.
Yeah.
I had...
I'm sure.
I have mixed feelings about it. As a sequel to Beyond Good and Evil, I'm a little trepidatious about it just because that game had a very obvious cliffhanger ending.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is a prequel instead?
And this is a prequel instead. So that kind of makes me a little bit cautious and kind of, okay, yeah, I've waited this long to figure out what was up with that hand. But
I'm benefiting a lot from only casually enjoying. I mean, like, I really, really liked Beyond Good and Evil 1, but I wasn't a mega fan, I guess. Because this game is not a Beyond Good and Evil game. This is just in that same universe.
But yeah, and that's where I did like what I see. If I put it out of my mind that this is a Beyond Good and Evil game, which, granted, you have the pluses that universe comes with, the sort of human and the anthropomorphic animal people, the world itself and the characters, it looks like a lot of fun, and that I'm looking forward to.
Michel Ancel, Rayman creator and director of Beyond Good and Evil 2, also almost cried during the Ubisoft press conference. There's 2 of those. I've never seen that before at a video game press conference. And I think that just drove home for me, like, Ubisoft is really putting their best foot forward this year. Which makes me sad that they're probably going to be bought by Vivendi and half those games won't come out.
They're being bought by the ukulele vending machine?
Vivendi, or whatever they're called. I think that's what they're called, right? Vivendi. But they're not necessarily being bought by them, but there's a lot of talks, and Ubisoft has made less money than expected for the last few years. It's a pretty substantial rumor that I hope isn't true, because Ubisoft's doing some good stuff. Everyone should buy Beyond Good and Evil 2 if that ever comes out.
Well, maybe if they wouldn't spend so much, maybe they wouldn't spend so much money putting on their own E3 press briefings. They could be more financially sound.
They did the best ones.
I don't care if you do the best one. If you can't afford it, don't do it. DK Vine doesn't have a press briefing at E3.
It's a form of advertisement. They totally make their money back.
We manage our money better than Ubisoft.
DK Vine doing it would be like Devolver Digital doing it, which did do it, and they were crazy. They were insane.
I'm just saying, we could show off Heroes of Kazam again.
Mm-hmm. We could just make a game. You want to make a game right now?
Right now? Like, in the next, 2 minutes, as we're finishing up the conversation?
Are you doing anything?
Am I doing anything? Well, I've got to, edit the conversation, get it up. I mean, I'm
now let's just make a game really quick. Okay, so we like talking animals. That's kind of like our glue. Let's do a talking...
Talking horses don't appreciate that joke.
Hyle and Cameron are in LA at the DK Vine Party House, bringing you the updates that will make you say, I wish I was Greg Mill's spouse. Everything rare in TKU, from the city where broadcast news will proposition you in an alleyway just to fund the new screenplay. DK Vine 93.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.